What's going on? Oh, God, got close that. All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Blazers Uprise podcast. This should be a very fun podcast for me and Eric because we're going to be grading each meaningful Blazer on their first half performance. I figured this was the perfect time to do it. We just got done with game number 41, so it's at the halfway point of the season. At the end of the season, we'll look at how players improved. We'll update our grades and see who improved, who got worse. Hopefully it's a lot of improvement because a lot of the grades are kind of down there, and people are struggling, the team's struggling. So what we're going to do is, actually, let me preface this with this. We're not going to be doing picks against the spread today. I had to spend too much time on the player grades graphics. So we're going to get back to that on Friday. I know some of you guys might be bummed about that, but we're not going to do picks against the spread today. We're just going to go in and evaluate each individual player. So what we're going to do is I'm going to reveal my grade. I'm going to explain it. Eric's going to reveal his grade. He's going to explain it. And then, if we disagree, we might debate on it a little bit. In the chat, I want you guys to leave your grades as well when the player comes up. So without further ado, let's hop straight into the player grades. We're doing this alphabetical. So we're starting off with Carmelo Anfernee. His stat line for the season, almost 32 minutes per game, a little over 16 points per game, 6 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and a steal. Shooting 43.5% from the field, 39.5% from three, almost 83% from the free throw line. True shooting percentage is below average. It's 52.6, and he has a negative 2.8 box plus minus. So my grade for Carmelo Anfernee is a C. Honestly, this is what I expected from him. And also, I forgot to put this disclaimer on it. How I graded, and I think how Eric graded as well, is based off the expectations for these players going into the season. So for Carmelo Anfernee, this is about what I expected from him. I expected him to be able to score, be able to have some good outings, but not be that great defensively. He's definitely regressed so far as the season's gone along, and he's not been efficient. This level of efficiency is about what I expected from him. I'm not really surprised by anything he's done except for maybe his three-point shooting, but his mid-range shooting has regressed compared to how it was earlier in his career. So I think a C is a pretty justified grade for him. What's your grade, bro?
I completely agree with that. I also gave him a C. Basically, if you would have told me he'd be averaging 16 points, 6 rebounds with almost 40% three-point shooting, I would have been, wow, that's great. That's far beyond what I expected from him. But then you look at all the rest of his stats, and it kind of evens out it from being a good grade based on those per game numbers. All his advanced stats are pretty much terrible. And lately he's pretty much stopped passing at all. And
hey, he had that one game. Okay, he kind of went back to passing. He had 6 assists, 8 assists, or something like that. But other than that,
8 assists. But before that game, he had pretty much been averaging an assist a game. I wish he would go back to where he was towards the beginning of when he came aboard, because he was moving the ball crisply. He was looking to pass more than looking to back down and pull a Charles Barkley isolate for 5 seconds type moves.
Yeah.
And I wish he would get back to more of the ball movement Melo that we saw when he first came over. But overall, like I said, can't really argue with too much, because he's playing like Melo plays, so he's exactly C grade, right in the average where he should be.
Yeah, for the people that think it's disrespect, Leo said disrespect. His efficiency just isn't good. Honestly, I thought he'd be have a little bit higher percentage from the field, maybe, and a little bit lower from three. His mid-range has regressed. That's the thing. If he was shooting the efficiency that he has throughout his career for mid-range, along with this 39% three-point percentage, he'd be a decently efficient player. But right now, he's just a volume scorer that's not really efficient, just because his percentages from inside the arc just aren't there. He's just not an efficient player inside the arc. He can knock down threes. He's been efficient outside the arc, but that's really the only area that's impressed me. I actually thought he'd shoot better inside the arc, so I think that kind of evens out. It's reflected with his true shooting percentage, 52.6%. That's not efficient, guys. Average is like 54 to 56%. So I think... Well,
especially if you're shooting near 40% from three, that should be
exactly
at least 55%.
Exactly, and he's shooting well from the free throw line, too. Yeah, 83%. Right. So... Yeah, I think C is about. I think this is about what I expected from Carmelo Anthony. Maybe a little bit better, but I figured C was a pretty fair grade there. So next player we got is Kent Bazemore, and this is gonna be a lot of fun. He's getting 25.5 minutes per game, 7.7 points per game, 3.9 rebounds, 1.3 assists per game, and a steal. He's shooting a horrible 34.8% from the field. He's one of the worst two-point shooters in the entire NBA. He's shooting 33.3% from the three-point line. Somehow, I think that's worse efficiency than Evan freaking Turner. So this trade might have actually been a downgrade. I mean, Evan Turner's been hurt this year, but Kent Bazemore struggled. 80.3% from the free throw line, so that's the one area where he's kind of efficient, I guess, but a horrible 47.4 true shooting percentage, a negative 2.6 box plus minus. So my grade is a D minus. A D minus. I don't know like how it could be much worse, but figuratively he could be a little bit worse somehow, you know? I mean, yeah. You know, his defense, honestly, like, a big part of this grade is his defense, too, hasn't really impressed me. He makes flashy defensive plays here or there. He makes hustle plays. So people just kind of assume, just based off those types of plays, that he is a good defender since those plays are noticeable. You know, a big highlight block or running across the court and getting a steal in the passing lane. But there's a lot of things that I feel like fans don't necessarily see with his defense that he really struggles with. And most of it is just defending off the ball, not being in the right spot, not rotating well. Just off the ball defensive fundamentals, he struggles with more than I thought he would. I'd say he's probably a slightly above average defender, but that's it. I expected him to be better defensively than he has been. So D minus, man, this is my worst grade of any Trailblazer. And I know it's yours as well. What do you got?
Yeah, this is also my worst grade. I gave him an F+. I saw some G minuses in the chat. That's really funny. G minuses. So to me, Bazemore has been by far the biggest disappointment of any of the new guys we brought in. And not necessarily because, I mean, it's one thing to struggle from the field, but you have other factors too, like his assist percentage and stuff like that have completely fallen off. Like, it used to be, there were seasons where he was in like the 20% assist rate, which is pretty decent for like a wing player, but it's like down around 6% this year.
Yeah.
And it's like he's not passing at all. And that's weird because he's kind of like Turner in that sense, where he was like could bring the ball up, get assists and stuff like that. And I don't know if a little bit has to do with I do think he's better in a more up tempo offense. Yeah. And so like I don't think he's good in a half court offense. He tries to create his own shot, and we've seen this year time after time that it's a disaster when he tries to get to the rim.
Yeah. I will say this, though. Honestly, when he has played up-tempo this season, the results have been just as disastrous. In previous seasons, I think he's been better playing in transition, but this season it just seems like he's lost he played with a higher level of control in transition in previous seasons. This year, he's much more prone to just jacking up horrible pull-up threes, contested pull-up threes in transition. And then when he drives, dude's literally Aminu-esque. Actually, he's worse than Aminu when he drives. He's worse than Aminu. He's out of control. He flips up these little scoop lay-ins. I don't even know what to call them. I've seen him shoot it off the backboard and miss rim on lay-ins far too much this season. And that seems to happen in transition too. So,
the only reason why I didn't give him a flat-out F was because there was a game, I think it was against Atlanta, where he hit a couple threes in overtime and basically won that game for us. He has had a few moments on defense where, you said they're kind of just like big plays that mask some of his other mistakes on defense, but he has had a few moments where he has been a decent defender this season.
Yeah.
I just wish it would be more consistent. He takes way too many risks on both ends of the floor. If he just played within himself and was more of a role player instead of acting like he's a star player, I think he would be a much better player on this team. But
I will also say his lack of playmaking has disappointed me, because this preseason he showed some flashes of making plays, like far more than he has this season. This preseason he was getting like four or five assists per game, I thought. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I remember him making a lot more plays for others, making some good passes. And I know it's preseason, but I thought that was a good sign for the regular season. Like, okay, this guy can kind of replace Turner's playmaking. This dude has not made plays, he's gotten so bad that there was that stretch against Minnesota where he literally looked off a wide-open Damian Lillard. He could have passed the ball to Damian Lillard, who would have had a wide-open three. And instead of doing that, he jacked up a contested three himself. So he's like looking down obvious passes at this point. It's been pretty brutal.
That's the frustrating part too, is it's like when you're struggling that bad, you're shooting sub 35% from the field. Like, shouldn't you be looking to pass versus taking a shot when you drive and stuff like that? And that's what drives me crazy, whether that's coaching or him just going off on his own. Either way, it's not good. And it's just so frustrating, because he could be a decent player if he just played within himself, but he doesn't do that. He tries to take over and make plays, and it doesn't happen. But yeah, like he has shown he's been a good passer in the past. So like, I don't.
Yeah, it's rough. Brian Scalabrini, he said, again, no notifications from YouTube. What other players did you guys grade? This is our second player. Only guy we graded was Carmelo Anthony. We both gave him C's. But also, this is just for all you guys in here. If you want to be guaranteed to get a notification when we go live, follow the channel's Twitter page, @BlazersUprise. I tweet out every time we go live on that page. And you can turn on tweet notifications for that page, and you can get a notification when we're going live just from the tweet itself, because YouTube's inconsistent and kind of buggy when it notifies you that a stream is live. So sometimes you won't get notifications even if you have notifications turned on for YouTube. I don't understand why that's the case, but it's just how it is.
I didn't get a notification, but then when I click the notification bell, it shows it on there. So I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, maybe because I scheduled it in the future. I don't know. What's up, Robbie Stackhouse? YouTube broke it and messes up notifications sometimes. Yeah, that's why you follow our Twitter page and hit that notification bell. I really only tweet out channel stuff on that Twitter page. I don't tweet from it much, so you won't get spammed with notifications. So I highly recommend that. Anyway, going on to our next player, we got Mario Hezonja. All right, 16 minutes per game, 4.5 points per game, 3.9 rebounds, almost an assist per game. I thought his playmaking would be better, and I wasn't as high on it as other Blazer fans. Blazer fans thought his playmaking was going to be a lot better than getting less than an assist in 16 minutes per game. He's getting about half a steal per game, shooting under 40% from the field. He has not been efficient at all. 39.2% from the field, 30.8% from three. He struggled with his three-point shot, which has kind of been how he's been throughout his career. 83.3% from the free throw line, 50.1 true shooting percentage, negative 3.2 box plus minus. I feel like a lot of these stat lines are pretty similar. I feel like this is kind of similar to Kent Bazemore's stat line, but I expected Bazemore to be better than Hezonja, so I'm giving Hezonja a D+. I wasn't high on Hezonja coming into the season. I thought it was a mistake to let Layman go and then try and replace him with Hezonja. The plan was to play Hezonja from the start, even with a healthy roster, and I thought that was a mistake. I thought if you're trying to contend, you can't rely on a guy who has not proven himself before coming to the Portland Trail Blazers. You can't rely on that guy to come in and play a role on a team trying to contend, even a playoff team. And you look at his stat line, like that is not a guy who'd be playing for the majority of teams in playoff position right now. Probably, honestly, maybe I'm being a bit too generous. I don't think he'd be playing for any playoff team right now, unless that team was dealing with injuries and had to play him. He'd be like a 12th, 13th guy on most teams. Going into the season, man, he was a part of the rotation. And this is kind of the performance he had all throughout his career. And I was told, oh, well, once he gets in Portland's system, he's been playing in in bad situations. So once he gets to Portland, his game will rise up another level because we have a better system. And that didn't apply to Nick Stauskas. And I don't think that happens as much as fans think. I don't think that coming from the New York Knicks to the Portland Trailblazers is really going to change players all that much. We don't have like the magic potion where we can just feed the magic potion to Hezonja and he turns into somebody other than he's been. So this hasn't really surprised me, sadly. I thought he might be a little bit better than this, but he's really, really struggled. And I think it was definitely a mistake to even go out and replace Layman with him in the first place.
Yeah, I gave him a D. So just slightly below yours. Part of that might be because I thought he was going to be a little better than you did going into the season, not by a lot, but anytime you are a small forward / power forward and you're shooting sub 40% from the field, once again, I mean, we've already talked about one player like that. We're about to talk about another one towards the end here, but so 30% from three was about what is expected. He's never been a good 3-point shooter. The most puzzling thing to me is that 0.9 assists per game. Like, we're talking about a guy who was propped up after 3 games on New York of averaging nearly 10 assists a game.
Two games were against basically G League teams, and people thought because of that small sample size, he was going to come in and be some playmaker.
And so just the fact that he hasn't been a playmaker at all, like not even a little bit. I guess there was like that one game where he got off on, like, we actually ran before he hurt his back. Was that the Minnesota game? Where he re-injured his back, but then we got blown out in that game after he left. So the reason why it's not an F for me is because, one is I wasn't expecting him to be a huge part of the rotation to begin with. And 2, it's like, I don't know. He's another one of those players where I feel like he's being used wrong. Yeah. So it's not entirely on Hezonja because that second unit, like you've been saying this all year, that they need to run with him. And when they did run in that Minnesota game, it shows a little bit of flashes of how he could play in that style of system. And I just feel like we're not playing to his strengths. We're trying to put him into Stott's system, which is not. He's not a half court player. He's a terrible half court player, and it's never going to work putting him in that situation.
Well, honestly, he could be better in the half court if he moved around more.
Right.
And this has been
but he doesn't.
This has been one of my biggest problems with Stotts is he doesn't get his forwards moving in sets in a system. A lot of it is guys standing around and the guards running around like crazy. That's why CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard are always near the top or at the top of the league in terms of miles ran per game. It was a problem with Aminu and Harkless. It's a problem with Hezonja, Little. Some people say, they can't run as many sets this year because they have new players and guys are injured, whatever. It's always been something that I've thought is a problem. Aminu and Harkless didn't cut or move around as much as they should have. Layman was literally the only forward that's moved a lot, and I think that was more a product of Layman. You know what I mean? I thought that was more of a product of him just being a really good cutter, knowing when to cut, and really wanting to move off the ball. Hezonja in the half court could be an effective player if he moved more, if he cut more, because he's athletic and he can finish when he has a head of steam going to the rim. The problem in the half court is he doesn't have the creativity with the ball or like the super quick first step or the jump shot to get guys out on him that would allow him to get a driving lane to the rim. Guys sag on him. He doesn't have the creativity with his dribble to shake guys out of position so he can drive, and then he's not super quick either, so he can't get downhill going to the rim. The problem that I had with him before this season was, how's he going to make plays for others when he can't make plays at all for himself, when he can't get going downhill towards the rim? If you can't collapse the defense on you, if you can't put pressure on the defense, the other 4 defenders guarding the other 4 offensive players, they're just going to stay home on their guy because you're not making them collapse. You're not forcing the help side to rotate to you because you're not getting downhill. So that was my thing with this playmaking. I think we've seen that, especially in the half court. That's why he struggled. So In transition, I think, he's able to, the lanes are already there since you're in transition. You're playing in transition. So in those situations, he's made some good passes, made some good plays. That's why he's a better player in transition. That's what I was saying before the season. I think we've seen it come to fruition. But in the half court, he just needs to be used like the way Layman was used, I just think our forwards don't move enough in our sets, and like as a cutter, as an alley-oop threat, backdoor, something like that, then he could actually get the ball with lanes to attack, maybe make plays or finish for himself.
And to your point, if it was Layman not freelancing, if that was part of the design to have him cut so much, why wouldn't Harkless and Aminu and the other wings, or the wings this year, cut ever? Like you would see that with everyone. You wouldn't just see it with one player.
Even some players might just be like just want to stand there, so you might not necessarily see it with everyone, but you see it with more than just Jake Layman.
Right.
But yeah, so I think everybody's pretty agrees on Hezonja. Anyway, here we go. We got Rodney Hood. Actually, let me just say this.
I'm going to do my fake cry.
I know, I'm going to do your fake cry. Let me just say this. For anybody wondering why I'm looking down, I'm reading chat on my phone. For anybody's like, why is he looking down at his phone? Why is he like text? Who's he texting mid-show? No, I'm reading chat. I'm reading it. I'm trying to read everything you guys are posting there in chat. Even if I don't say it on air or respond to it live, doesn't mean I'm not reading it. Rodney Hood, sucks that he got hurt. I would have liked to have seen if he could have kept up this level of production for the entire season. I mean, you look at the stat line, man, it's impressive. 29.5 minutes per game, 11 points per game. He should have been getting more shots. But, we talked about that before his injury. Now it's, obviously not an option. 3.4 rebounds per game, 1.5 assists per game, 0.8 steals per game, 50.6 from the field, 49.3 from the three-point line. That's elite efficiency, especially for a guy who
can't do much better than that.
Yeah, he hadn't been anywhere close to this level of efficiency in years prior. 77.8 free throw percentage, 62.5 true shooting percentages. Next closest true shooting percentage, I think, was 54, 55%, and he had been in the league a while. So that was a huge, huge uptick. He was probably the most improved player on the team, I think. He showed flashes of this type of play last year, but it wasn't consistent. This year he started doing it on a night-in, night-out basis. He did have a negative 0.4 box plus minus, which surprised me a little bit. But my grade for him is an A. This is my best grade. It's an A. If he was defending better before his injury, I mean, obviously this is all based off of his play before the injury. If he was defending better, he would have gotten an A+. Offensively, dude was absolutely phenomenal. Dude was perfect. Okay, defensively, I did want to see a little bit more out of him. I don't think he was bad per se, but I thought he could have been a little bit better. I was hoping to see a little bit more improvement in that regard. So that's why it's not an A+, but I think this is an easy A grade, given what he did offensively.
So I'm about to get some heat then, because I gave him a B.
Yeah, see, this was the one grade you had, because I graded my guys before I saw your grades. I didn't want your grades to affect mine at all. Right. This was the one grade where I was like, Eric. So I'm interested to hear you explain this.
So my line of thinking with everyone, and I'll probably get some heat for another grade later on, was that when you're below 500, no one deserves an A. And I feel like if someone is putting up that crazy of stats, they should affect winning more. That makes sense. So a B was pretty much an A, if they were a winning team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just don't agree with that, because we're evaluating individuals, you know what I mean? Right. An individual can be fantastic and the rest of his team could be underachieving and they're not winning games. You know what I mean?
Yes. But yeah, offensively, I mean, that's about as good as you could play offensively. Defensively, like you said, a little disappointing, but yeah, there's a few games where he kind of disappeared or he doesn't get a lot of shots, and that might once again be coaching, not necessarily his aggressiveness level. So I wish we could have gotten a chance to see. But yeah, you can't really play offensively much better than he played, given the opportunities he had earlier in the season.
Yep.
But B is a high grade for me for this season because like honestly, I don't feel like anyone deserves a good grade because like how much if you're an A, I feel like you should be impacting wins and losses if you're an A, if that makes sense.
That's true. I wish, dude, I'm still bummed he got hurt because this level of efficiency, he probably wouldn't have kept up this level of efficiency all season long, but I was interested just to see where his numbers were at the end of a healthy season, to see if he was still shooting around 50% from three or even 45% from three would have been phenomenal for a whole season. Even 40%. Think about it. Even 40% from three for Rodney Hood would have been phenomenal for a whole season. He was shooting almost 50. So I just wanted to see it throughout the season. It's just, god damn, it's a shame. It's a shame he ended up getting hurt. But let's move on. We got Skal Labissiere. And this is an interesting guy to evaluate. So stat line, 17 minutes per game, almost 6 points per game. 5 rebounds per game, 1.3 assists, almost a block per game, 55% from the field, 23% from three, which I thought he would be shooting more threes. That 23% is on a very low sample size, so it's not indicative of who he is as a shooter, if that makes sense. Almost 76% from the free throw line. True shooting percentage, 59%, so that is a good mark of efficiency. And he's one of the few Blazers with a positive box plus minus. He has a 1.2 box plus minus. So based on everything, I gave him a B+, okay? Offensively, I do think he should be shooting more threes, but his finishing inside the arc has improved. It's better than I thought it would be. And that's reflected with his true shooting percentage, 59%, even though he's not shooting threes, which usually, if you can shoot threes efficiently, it's going to help your true shooting percentage. But he's been finishing well inside the arc. Obviously, he's only playing 17 minutes per game, so 6 points per game at 17 minutes per game. That's not horrible. Per 36, that's about 13 points per game. But a big part of this grade comes from his defense. I did not expect him to be a good defender this season at either position. But he's played center, and I think he's actually been a solid, possibly even a good defender at the center position. His rim protection has impressed me. His instincts in terms of rotating to the rim, to protect the rim, it's impressed me. He's just been a much better defender than I thought he would be going into the season. Offensively, this is kind of what I expected from him. The efficiency is a little bit better than I thought, but defensively, I've been pleasantly surprised with Skal Labissiere, so that's why I grade him a B+.
Real quick, do you want to explain what box plus minus is for the people who don't?
Okay, box plus minus is just an advanced stat. I don't know exactly what goes into it, but it basically just weighs kind of... You might be able to explain it better than me, Eric.
It's basically one-on-one matchups of how you do guarding the person you're guarding. So like on offense, while you're on the floor, if you have outscore your opponent, you get positive, and if you don't, obviously it affects your defense too. Yeah. I don't know. There's lots of factors that go.
Yeah, basically it basically weighs your performance against your matchup. Basically, Beavis says I hate advanced stats. They're nonsense. I definitely don't agree with them being nonsense. I get how some people don't like them. That's why I just included one advanced stat here. True shooting percentage is an advanced stat. That's a pretty basic math stat in my opinion. It just basically weighs 2-point percentage, 3-point percentage, and free throw percentage, and comes up with an efficiency number based off that. Because obviously 3-point shots are harder than 2-point shots, but they're worth an extra point. So shooting 40% from 3 is better than shooting 50% from 2, if that makes sense. So true shooting percentage, people talk about that as an advanced stat. I don't think that's an advanced stat. I think that's the perfect stat to measure a player's efficiency. So I just put one advanced stat in there for you guys who wanted it. Some of you guys might not, but that's why we got all the other stats in there. So anyway, Eric, what do you grade Skal Labissiere?
This might be our biggest differential in grades. I gave him a C, and it's not necessarily because I'm disappointed or anything with Skal. He's just playing exactly how I thought he would play this season.
You expected him to play defense like this?
Maybe not in certain areas like that, but overall. So defensively, I think Skal's a weird situation because he has the skill to be a really good player in the NBA, like not necessarily a star, but like a really good big man. Like he can offensively, he can score on all three levels. He has post moves. We haven't really got to see them a lot. But like, I think it was the Utah game, he backed down Gobert and got like a nice, easy hook shot. It rimmed out, but like just the ability to do that to a defensive player like Gobert was really impressive. But this guy, Skal, put up better numbers his first couple of years in the NBA on Sacramento when he actually was given minutes. So it's not like surprising to me. It's not like Simons where you haven't seen him play in the NBA at all, really, and you're trying to guess what he's going to do based on potential. So he has shown that he can do these skills. But yeah, I was a little disappointed in his overall, like his defensive box plus minus, I think, was really good, but his offensive box plus minus was bad compared to what it should be. Yeah. And when you have as many skills as Skal does, I just think he should be. And once again, this is probably not even on Skal's. It's not even his fault, really, but he should be more of a focal point on offense to get baskets because he can score. He's got that feathery jump shot from the mid-range. He's got a nice-looking three-stroke, which he doesn't really have the confidence to shoot very often, which is weird being on a team where most people, that's their biggest pro for having Stotts as a coach is that he enables people to have the green light a lot. So it's kind of weird when someone doesn't have that. But I really like what Skal was doing this year, and I felt like it was around the Philly and Golden State game. This was the Golden State game we got blown out in. I felt like he played really well in both of those games and got taken out late in the fourth quarter. And once again, not really his fault, but I knew Skal had a lot of these skills already, so I don't think he was doing anything that shocked me. If that makes sense.
So where I disagree with you is, I don't think what he's done on the court in terms of like what he has produced offensively hasn't been worse than his skill set. Hasn't been worse than like the player he is. You know what I mean? It's been more of a, he's not shooting threes and he's not a big enough focal point of the offense. I mean, that might be on him, but as a big man, you need some sets, you need guards to set you up. It's kind of dependent on a bunch of different things for a role player like Skal. He's not a Karl-Anthony Towns. You just give him the ball and he'll go do his thing and get his own shot. So that's where I disagree with you. I'm not going to grade him too harshly for that. I'm especially not going to say that cancels out the defensive improvement that I didn't see coming from him. You know what I mean? I think inside the arc, he's produced just as well as I expected. Outside the arc, I don't think he's underachieved. He just hasn't shot threes. So, I don't know. I'm not going to really dock him much, if at all, for the lack of volume. I think a lot, And honestly, this level of efficiency is good. Is good in my opinion. It's a little bit better than I expected. I expect him to be like have 55, 56 true shooting percentage. Be like have some average efficiency, for a big man. But has a 59% true shooting percentage. I think he's been a little bit more efficient than I thought he'd be this season. And offensively, I think he's been much, much better.
Yeah, so I just go back to that. If we're using box plus minus as one of our stats, having a negative offensive box plus minus doesn't really make sense to me, considering all his other stats with his true shooting percentage being so high and stuff like that. So like the numbers just weren't quite adding up to, like, I'm just confused as to why he's only averaging 5 points a game and, stuff like that.
5.8 points per game. He is only playing 17 minutes per game. So scoring at the rate of 13 points for every 36 minutes, that's not terribly low in my opinion. That's about the same rate as Rodney Hood. I'm not going to.
The other thing I'll say real quick about Skal is, He's basically been playing out of position, in my opinion, all year. I don't think he is as good at center as he would be at power forward. So I hate to dock him for that because that's not his fault either. I'm just basing it, like I said, I felt like he's playing exactly how I thought his skill set should play. So it's not necessarily that he's playing bad or anything. And I wish he didn't get hurt because I'd like to see his development. Yep. One good thing he has developed, he's a lot better screener than he was at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. So I should probably have bumped him up a little bit for that because that's one of the things that did surprise me.
Yep. So, no, we're not going to grade Zach or Nurk. Dame Doll asked if we're going to grade Zach. No, we're not. He only played, 2.5 games, basically. So, no point. Too small of a sample size. Rodney Hood, I felt like played enough for us to grade him. Beavis Cleaver asked me to explain true shooting percentage. So let me just explain it like this. Like, this is a very simplistic way. But if you shoot 50% from 2, you're going to get 1 point for every 2-point shot that you shoot, if that makes sense. Since you get 2 points for every 2-point shot and you shoot 50%, you're going to get 1 point per shot. If you shoot 40% from the 3-point line, you get 3 points per shot. So you get about 1.2 points per shot, if that makes sense, if you shot 40%. It's basically just a math thing. It basically weighs 2-point percentage, 3-point percentage, and free throw percentage, like based on how many points each produces, if that makes sense. It's just kind of a math thing. Let me just say, just like, it's hard to explain the math, especially like live on the spot here, but I think it's the best measure for efficiency.
Yeah, so if you guys just do a quick Google too, you can look up the actual formula for it and all that stuff. So it's pretty simple.
Alrighty, next player we got Damian Lillard. All right, 36 points or 36 minutes per game, a little over that. 26.8 points per game, 4.1 rebounds per game, 7.6 assists per game, which is a career high. His next highest assist per game mark for his career was 6.9, 0.9 steals per game, 44.5% from the field, 36.4% from the 3-point line. That's about in line with those marks throughout his career. 88.7 free throw percentage, so that's declined a little bit. He's usually an above 90% free throw shooter, but it's not that far below that. He's shooting a career high 60.6 true shooting percentage. His field goal, how do I explain this? His 2-point percentage is actually, I think, higher than how it's been for his entire career. His field goal percentage isn't higher, though, because he's shooting more 3-point shots than ever. And when you shoot, if Dame shot all 3-point shots, shooting 36% from the 3-point line, he's going to have a 36% field goal percentage. So that also kind of shows why true shooting percentage is good. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. But I graded Damian Lillard an A- because I think he's having his best year of his career, at least on the offensive end. Defense, I think he's regressed a little bit, but he's having to do so much offensively. I don't really blame him. He's exhausted. He's being ran into the ground, playing almost 37 minutes per game. But he's having his best offensive year. He's having his most efficient year, over 60% true shooting percentage, career high, and he's getting 7.6 assists per game. So I think he's, especially when you consider the spot that he's in, I think this is kind of the toughest spot he's been in maybe since the year after Aldridge left. When you look at what he's doing in a tough season with not that much talent around him, I think it's very, very impressive, and that's why I grade him an A-.
Yeah, I'm going to take an L here. I gave him a B+.
Yeah.
And I already kind of explained this. I don't think anyone deserves an A on this team, especially when you're the best player. You shouldn't – it's just weird how good Dame has been this season and it not translating to wins when he's the best player in a league where star players win games. And the only thing that can lead to that is, obviously he's probably not doing well on the defensive end, right?
Yeah, but okay, let me just pause you right here. Without Damian Lillard, what do you think our record would be?
Oh, we'd be crap.
Exactly.
we might have won one game.
We have 6 wins right now, or 7 wins right now, or something horrible. We have 17. So I think his play has translated to wins.
Yeah.
It's just we would be, because that's the thing. We'd be a 7-win team without him. Right now we're a 17-win team. So I think it's more of a product of what's around him.
Well, to counter that, if he wasn't so high on our current coach, we might have a different one, though, right?
I mean, I'm not gonna bake that into the grave, but
I'm just messing with
you.
No. So I was trying to deep dive into Dame's stats a little more because I was really curious how he could be so good with it not translating. Mm-hmm. And he's had the lowest usage rate since in the era since Dame or Aldridge left. So he's not like having the ball as much. He's not controlling the ball as much. There's not as many plays for him, which is weird. That's probably leading to the higher efficiency. And I don't like how we've been saying this all year that I don't like how many minutes he's playing. And then if you take out that for those few games where he played with a bad back too, like his numbers will probably be even better. But it is the worst defensive box plus minus of his career.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean defensive box. Let me just say this about box plus minus for all you guys. I think offensive box plus minus is a little bit more solid of a advanced stat than defensive box plus minus. I do think Dame has struggled defensively, but I also think he's dealing with so much attention defensively. Even if his possessions don't end with something that raises his usage rate, he's still like having to deal with pressure that I don't think he's ever had to deal with. And he's been ran to the ground. He's playing 37 minutes per game. So I almost kind of give him a pass for the defensive end because of how hard he has to work offensively. Now I'm looking up his usage rate stats since you said it's a low since the last year he played with Aldridge, right? His usage rate was 0.5% higher last year. Only 0.5%. So I think that difference is negligible compared to last season.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's interesting that he doesn't have the he's not controlling the ball as much as he did last year.
Yeah, I think part of that is just kind of the way teams are guarding him, you know.
Yeah.
They're forcing the ball out of his hands, you know. They're forcing the ball out of his hands, forcing it to Anfernee Tolliver, who they won't guard on the 3-point line, then he shoots a 3. Like it's, you know, and then Anfernee Tolliver shoots bad, he misses, you know, that's not going to raise his usage rate.
But this goes back to I wish it was because of that we're trying to play him off the ball more, which I don't think has been the case. Like that hasn't been noticeable.
Yeah, that's true.
But like we've wanted that to happen for a long time, especially against trapping teams. But yeah, like I don't know. It's just like you look at a guy like Harden last year, who when he basically had a pretty bad team for several months and he single-handedly led them to 53 wins.
I mean, he also had a bunch of good shooters around him, though, so he had the space to just isolate every possession down. And if he did deal with that pressure, he actually had better shooters to pass it to.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I'm just saying, like, at some point, I just have to be like, you know what, I'm not giving anyone an A because like this is just a crap show this year, and I don't think anyone's playing perfect basketball.
If this was our record and Dame was averaging 35 points per game, with a true shooting percentage of 65% and 8 assists, and somehow this was still our record, hypothetically speaking, would you still not give him an A because this is our record?
I mean, I don't think that is possible for that.
I mean, let's just say it happened though somehow.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I would give him an A-. And I fully admit that he probably deserves an A- like you gave him. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I just I mean, the guy scored 60 points in a game and we lost. It's tough.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's exactly my point right there. It might be possible.
I just I also think that he's one of the problems with our defense being the rotations being so bad and all that stuff. And until that gets fixed by everyone, that's just one of the, like, I don't know, I wouldn't say regressed, but like for some reason that like no one seems as focused on defense as they have been the last few years at improving on that end. And part of that's probably because he's playing so many minutes. but yeah, I would like to see him, because the last few years I felt like he had been improving defense every year, and then this year I feel like he's fallen asleep too much. He's by far not the biggest culprit on the team. That goes to both Bazemore and someone we haven't talked about yet. But like, I just feel like I don't know. This team needs like more of a vocal leader, and something. Not. I'm okay. I misspoke. Not more of a vocal leader. Dame's a great leader. I'm not saying he's not a good leader. I'm saying defensively, I just feel like there's not a focus on defense like it should be. And
yeah, I think I just give more of a pass for that than you do. I mean, he's playing so many minutes. Somebody said in chat, I forget who it was, that his turnovers have been a problem this year. Just looking at his assists and turnovers per game for his career, I think this is the highest assist to turnover ratio that he's ever had. So he's playmaking, and his playmaking compared to turnovers. Usually, if you have more assists per game, your turnovers will rise with that because you're throwing more passes, trying to set more guys up. So his assist to turnover ratio, I think, is a career high at this point. So I don't think it's really been a problem. Turnovers per game, maybe that's something I could have included instead of like steals. But turnovers per game, he's getting 2.8 turnovers per game right now. Last year he got 2.7. The year before he got 2.8. So I don't think his turnovers have really been that much of an issue. All right, going on to the next player. We got Nassir Little. I didn't expect him to play this year. Honestly, if he had a year like Simon's last year where he barely played, I wouldn't be grading Nassir Little. But he's actually played. Maybe that's a pleasant surprise for some, but he kind of played out of necessity. We need a guy to come and set the tone with his energy. He's getting a little over 12 minutes per game, 3.3 points per game, 2.7 rebounds per game, half an assist, 0.3 steals. I mean, his stats are basically minimal at best. 38.9% from the field, 16.7% from three, 61.3% from the free throw line. A bad 45.6 true shooting percentage, a negative 4.1 box plus minus. Let me just say this, though. Actually, we got poor connection. Poor connection on Eric's end. We might have lost Eric. But here, his 2-point percentage is a 52.5%. I might have to reconnect that there. He's shooting solidly inside the arc. There we go. All right. He's shooting solidly inside the arc. He struggled outside the arc. That has hurt his field goal percentage. He was shooting a lot of threes early on, and right now he's not ready to be shooting threes. If he was just shooting shots inside the arc, his field goal percentage would be 52.5%. You know what I mean? But you look at that dismal 3-point percentage, that's bringing his field goal percentage down a lot. Lately, he hasn't shot threes, which is an interesting development. I do want to see him figure out his 3-point shot, maybe make some changes to his form. But overall, bad field goal percentage, but that doesn't showcase how he's actually been solid inside the arc in terms of some of the plays he's finishing and that type of thing. My grade for him is a B-, okay? Because I didn't expect Nassir Little to play this year. I did not expect him to play. So the fact that he's played and actually, he's kind of swung a couple games with his energy, I feel like that's better than what was to be expected out of Nassir Little. So, looking at the stat line and then the grade, it doesn't really match up because the stat line isn't good, but I think he's had flashes of some good defense. He's has flashes of rebounding the ball really well. I don't know. The fact that he's played, honestly, raises the grade up a little bit for me. What do you got, Eric?
I gave him a C. I did not expect him to play at all this year, like you said. So he's still a project. He's still a ways away. I love his defensive energy, his energy overall. I like his footwork on defense, being able to stay in front of people, and he's had some really good individual performances on defense. I just can't give him more than a C based on his offensive numbers either. Hopefully those are improved. And I said this on the last post-game show. I'm giving Little a complete pass on this year because, I don't know, he's not ready to play meaningful NBA minutes yet, at least offensively. I think he actually is defensively. But I wish if we're going to lose games, we play more to get him more involved. But yeah, I just think he's a solid C. Hasn't been terrible if you factor in both sides of the court, and hasn't been great. But yeah, I didn't expect greatness, so right where I expected him to be.
Yep. Trevor said whole streams is going to be grades with a sad face. I mean, we can have some time at the end. That's basically what this stream is. It's mid-season. It's the mid-season report card, bro. Also for chat, has Eric graded one player higher than me? I'm curious. We had an even grade with both of us giving Carmelo C's. Other than that, I don't think Eric's graded anybody higher than me. Well, I can't remember if he did or not.
Usually you're the negative one, right?
Apparently. But anyway, next player. We got CJ McCollum. 36 minutes per game, 22 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, almost 4 assists per game. His playmaking has been a little bit better this season than it has been in years past, almost a steal per game. 45% from the field, almost 38% from 3, 79% from the free throw line, which he should be a much better free throw shooter, especially considering how good he is shooting mid-range off the dribble and that type of thing. I can't fathom why he's a sub 80% free throw shooter. It doesn't make sense to me. 54 true shooting percentage, which is, I don't know, it's slightly below average, but it's pretty close to average when you're getting 22 points per game out of a scorer like that, and his true shooting percentage is close to average. Like, that's fine, in my opinion. 54% and higher is kind of like, okay, that's fine. Would like to see him be a little bit more efficient. Part of that is affected by the fact that he doesn't get to the free throw line, which is the most efficient thing you can do if you really think about it. So he doesn't get to the free throw line like Dame does. That's why Dame has a much higher true shooting percentage than him. But CJ, just kind of like the typical year from him. I gave him a B-, because I do think I should have probably graded him a little bit lower than this, to be honest, but he had a little bit of a slight uptick in assists per game. I think his on-ball defense has improved a little bit. His off-ball defense is kind of where it's always been. He's always really, really struggled to defend off the ball. It's always been a negative area of his. But this is about the efficiency I expected from him. Slight uptick in playmaking. On-ball defense improved a little bit. I could definitely see somebody grading him a C, just being like, this is just the same CJ McCollum that we expected, that we've had in years past. But I give him a B-.
I agree with you. I also gave him a B-. I felt like this was my nicest grade.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And for those saying that I'm a tough grader, I already explained this to you guys. Like I'm a tough grader in this. I'm usually not, but in this instance, I'm just so fed up with the Blazer season, so I wasn't going to give anyone a good grade. But yeah, like you touched on it a bit, like sub 38% from 3 and sub 80% from the free throw line. Like, what's going on there? Like,
yeah.
Those are things he should be closer to 40% on his 3, and there's no way he should be lower than like 90% on free throws. And it's frustrating how many key free throws he seems to miss as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people are confused now on my grading system.
Yeah, I feel like you're about to talk yourself into disagreeing with your own grade.
Yeah. I was teetering on the C+, B- side. But I almost feel like CJ's gotten like a lot of people turned on CJ, and I don't think he's doing anything different or what he's being asked to do.
Yeah, what's funny is we were critical on CJ to start the season. And his style of play, I think, has improved a little bit throughout the season. We were more critical than most to start the season. Now I think we're less critical than most. It's funny how things have flipped. Like, he gets so much slander now, and it's like he's actually, we're kind of getting called out for it at the start of the season.
Right.
But he's actually, I think his style of play and his overall level of play has improved. You know what I mean? Like, he really struggled to start this season. He's improved. Not just, like, his efficiency, but, his playmaking a little bit. His assists per game is almost at 4 assists per game. Like, that's an improvement. It was around 3 to start the season. But it's funny how now everybody else is critical, and now we're kind of like, okay, you know what? He's doing a little bit better. He's still has some areas that I wish he'd improve on in terms of his style of play, in terms of defending off the ball, but he's been okay.
Yeah, and he's been so the what downgrades him for me is his off-ball defense is just brutal to watch sometimes. Like, if you guys want to like get really frustrated, just watch him off the ball sometimes.
Tonight, we got a game tonight. Focus on CJ off the ball. Trust me.
He saves too much off his guy and doesn't have enough time to recover.
Granted,
he overhelps.
Yeah, granted, he might be the one matched up against James Harden, which means he would never defend off the ball because every possession is a James Harden ISO. But
yeah, but yeah, so it's hard because like other than his shooting being a little down in a couple areas, he's not really been that bad. And I wanted him to improve his assist percentage, which he has this year, so I can't downgrade him for that. I don't know. I just feel like Dame and CJ aren't really the problem. Yeah. And I feel like CJ's being scapegoated a little bit.
Yeah.
But he does need to play better. And this needs to be closer to an A if we're going to contend again. If not, we might as well trade him because, he's not.
But think about this. Think about this real quick before you say the rest of this. Think about this. The first 10 games, he was in a major slump. Might have been 12, might have been 14. Okay? Since then, his stats probably look a lot better than this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, his first 10 to 12 game stretch is really weighing down his stats, like how it looks like his season's going. Since that first 10 to 12 games, that's the CJ I want. You know what I mean? Like, if you just erase that 10 to 12 games, like, it would be kind of where we want him to be, I feel like.
Yeah, completely agree.
So, yeah, I should do maybe if at halftime tonight I'll try and like just get stats for like his past 30 games, because 41 games in, I'll get his stats for like the past 30 games and see what they are, and maybe try and like put that out for you guys. Maybe I'll tweet that out. It'd just be interesting to see, in my opinion. So anyway, moving on to the next player, we got Anfernee Simons. Very interesting case here. 22 minutes per game, 9.4 points per game, 2.5 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 0.4 steals. Almost 42% from the field, 33% from three. Thought his efficiency would be better than that. Thought his efficiency would be, I thought he'd be shooting around 45% from the field and maybe 37% from three. But, we'll get into that after I finish reading off these stats. We got 76% from the free throw line. He's another guy that I think should be a better free throw shooter than he is. His free throws come off the rim hard. Like, he shoots his free throws hard. He doesn't shoot them soft, if that makes sense. Honestly, if I was an NBA player, let me just say, if I was an NBA player, I'd be pissed at myself if I shot less than 80%. So with CJ and Anfernee shooting less than 80%, it's bad. It's bad. And for any of those who say, oh, you wouldn't shoot 80%, I shot 58 for 60 from the free throw line a couple days ago. I can do that consistently. So I can hold these guys accountable shooting 76%, even though it doesn't look that bad. 51.2 true shooting percentage, negative 4.6 box plus minus. I graded Anfernee a C+. A C+. I did expect his offense to be a little bit better, but it was also kind of a case where I had no idea what I was going to get out of him. Why I grade him a C+ is I think he's actually shown flashes of potential for being a better on-ball defender than I thought he would. He still has to learn how to defend off the ball, but that's like a problem with the whole team. If the whole team was like defending well off the ball, maybe Simons wouldn't get mixed up as much. Maybe he'd be better defending off the ball. But he's shown flashes defending on the ball that I didn't think he had in him. Honestly, I never, before the season, I would say, okay, hopefully at some point in Simons' career, he can be an average defender. But there's been possessions where he's played really, really good on-ball defense that makes me think that he can be a better defender than Damian CJ. Like, a noticeably better defender than Damian CJ. And honestly, that is like a big reason for the grade, because we know he has the offensive talent. He just has to put together the consistency. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that he could move his feet quite as quickly as he has, if that makes sense. So a big part of my grade is what he's the flashes he's shown on the defensive end. But he was a really hard guy to grade. Really, really hard guy to grade. Because it was hard to even figure out what I expected from him going into the season.
I want to preface this by saying I absolutely think he should be getting 22 minutes a game before I give my grade. I absolutely think he should be part of the rotation and playing, regardless of how well he does. Whether he struggles or plays great, he should be playing in games and getting this experience right now, especially with our record this season. I gave him a C-. I went into it thinking I was just going to give him a C, and that I wasn't going to kind of like little, just, I wasn't really expecting a whole lot. So whatever he gave us is fine either way. But looking at his numbers a little closely, like, they're bad. Like, his shooting numbers are bad. Yeah. His passing numbers are bad. His rebounding numbers are bad. Like, he basically does. He just needs to improve at all levels to be better. And what's surprising is the one thing that I thought was going to be really bad, like you said, has actually been okay, I think, even though the numbers don't reflect it. He's had some tough matchups in some of those games too. But yeah, he hasn't been great on defense, but he hasn't been like awful either. And it seems like he is improving each game as well. Lately, like you said, he's been staying in front of his guy a lot more. He seems to be a little smarter on his positioning. But yeah, overall his shooting numbers, like, he's a good scorer, whether he's 20 years old or, an 8-year veteran or whatever. He should be shooting better and distributing the ball a little better, since he's the main guard in the second unit.
The distribution has been definitely a negative on him. He's just another one of those guys where it's just like he had a very, very bad stretch. A very bad stretch where he's in a slump. Just a major, major slump. And given what I've seen from him offensively, I can say, like, that's a slump. And I honestly have a feeling that he won't have a slump that bad for the rest of his career unless, maybe he's playing at 40 years old or whatever. There was a month and a half where he was just absolutely horrible. Right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't really surprise me from a young player. I feel like with a young player like this, you can't read as much into his stats as you can for a Damian Lillard or a CJ McCollum or guys like that. Right?
Yeah.
You take out that slump and, like, the stretch of the start of the season before that slump and his most latest stretch, I feel like he's been okay offensively, if that makes sense. Obviously, if you just take the best, stretches from a player, you're going to make them look a lot better. But I feel like with Anfernee, it was just like, okay, expect better numbers from him based off his talent, but his inconsistency, who knows how bad his inconsistency will be, who knows how long he'll slump for, who knows how bad his slumps will be for, and that type of thing. So for me, it's just more about, okay, can he show flashes? Can he can he string together games where he has, like, multiple good games in a row? Because I feel like that's more indicative for what he is in the future. So, like, my grade is kind of based off his, like, full season performance, and it's also kind of based on what he's showcasing in terms of his long-term potential, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. And once again, I would not trade Simons for pretty much anyone unless it's like a Karl-Anthony Towns or like a superstar type player. Like, I am super high on Simons. I just don't think he's played extremely well this season, and so I can't give him a high grade, even if he should be struggling, which he should be. Like, I'm not expecting him to be an A player this year. That would have been amazing. And it was kind of crazy how good of a first few games he had, considering all the hype and all that. It was like, whoa, is he actually going to live up to the hype this season? But I never bought into that for this year.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's as good as he could be, given the opportunities he's been had this season.
Yep.
But I'm still super high on him overall.
Beavis Cleveland, another game, is on the road in Houston at 6:30. Dame Dalla is in here in the chat giving me crap for saying I think I could shoot 80% from the free throw line, saying, you have to play in front of, the pressure and 20,000, playing in front of 20,000 people. I've played in front of a couple thousand, 2,000, 3,000, maybe even 4,000. What's an extra, 16,000? At that point, you're still playing in front of thousands of people, like 4,000, 20,000, like who cares? You know what I mean? It's a lot of people. Like I don't know why people would sit there at the free throw line like, dang, there's not 4,000 people in the crowd, there's 20,000. You know what I mean? Like I don't understand that, if that makes sense. The only thing that messed with me is the depth perception. But like I don't get pressure on free throws, man. Like the noise, whatever. 4,000 people can make a lot of noise too. But when they like know you personally and like I don't know, like when it's in your hometown, like that's, I don't know. It's not. I don't think it. I think I could shoot around 80% from the free throw line in the NBA. I believe that.
I feel like Chad doesn't recognize that you hit 8 free throws in a row in the championship game.
Exactly. Rip City 3-on-3 championship game, hit 8 in a row. So I could definitely do it on the NBA level. No, I mean, like maybe at first I struggle, but I'd get used to it. You know what I mean? You get used to that. You stay in that environment, and if you stay in an uncomfortable environment longer, the longer you stay in an uncomfortable environment, the more comfortable it'll become, if that makes sense. Yeah. As long as it's, I don't know. I'm making up sayings on the spot here. Anyway, let's go on to the next player. I think we only got a couple left. Anfernee Tolliver, 17 minutes per game, less than 4 points per game, 3.4 rebounds per game, less than assists per game. I don't even know why I'm including steals at this point. 0.3 steals per game. 36.1% from the field, 32.9% from 3, 68.4% from the free throw line, 50.7 true shooting percentage, negative 2.3 box plus minus. So this is our third, like, combo forward, power forward, whatever you want to call it, that is shooting under 40% from the field. You got Hezonja, Little, Tolliver. Tolliver's sucked this year. The last game,
Bazemore too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You missed him.
Oh, I was talking like power forward. Bazemore's more of like a wing to me, but like you could also include Bazemore. We got a lot of guys shooting under 40% from the field. Obviously it's don't have a lot of talent. I also think, I mean, this isn't to excuse the coaching. Let me just say that we're not going to go in on the coaching in this podcast, but this type of stuff doesn't like excuse the coaching because I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand in a way. But Tolliver struggled. Turned it on in the fourth quarter last game. 16-point fourth quarter. I think that was his season high, and he said it in a close game. Literally dropped 16 points in the fourth quarter. That's insane. But overall, his defense has been bad. I should probably reveal my grade. I'm giving him a D. His defense has been bad. I expected his defense to be better. He was touted as a 3-and-D guy going into the season. I think he's been a bad defender. He does do some things well. He hedges pick and rolls well. I like that Stotts is smart enough to allow Anfernee Tolliver to hedge a pick and roll, because if you have him trying to protect the rim and sag with a guard coming at him with a big who's a lob threat, he's not able to take away either one of those things. He can't really get off the ground. So I like that Terry Stotts had the common sense to allow Anfernee Tolliver to hedge on screens, which is the obvious thing to do in my opinion. And he actually does so he does so decently. But in terms of his on-ball defense, his closeouts, his rotations, just everything else, I think he's been a poor defender, and he hasn't been a good three-point shooter, 33%. I mean, this wasn't a guy that we expected to really need going into the season. But still, man, you look at his stats 2 years ago when he was a decent defender and he was shooting 43% from the three-point line. I mean, he's just old. He's regressing because of age. And I kind of saw this coming, just not to this rate, if that makes sense. So that is why I give him a D.
I gave him a D-, and the only reason why it wasn't worse was 2 reasons. One, it's not his fault that he's had to play center a lot this year. Yeah. And I mean, he's not a center, so I had to kind of give him a little bump for that. And then the fourth quarter last game, he basically won us that game. So can't give him an F when he won us a game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Overall, he's a 3-point shooting specialist that can't hit threes, and that's not good.
Yeah, that's it.
You're hitting less than one out of every 3-pointer, and that's your one skill. That's the reason you're in the NBA. other than being 6'8". Like if he wasn't a 3-point shooter, he would not be in the NBA, and he can't even do that this year.
That's the best way to describe this. He's a 3-point specialist that isn't hitting threes. Yeah, exactly.
And, like a 6'8" guy that's shooting 36% for the field, like that's ridiculous. Like, and he even admitted it after the last game that he has been shooting crap all year. So hopefully he can get some confidence and get out of his slump. But yeah, he's been terrible outside of the fourth quarter of the last game and maybe a couple of other moments, taking a couple charges or whatever. But yeah, definitely not great overall unless he gets that 3-point shooting percentage.
The thing is with his field goal percentage, though, that we do have to remember is he shoots 3.5 shots per game. 2.6 of those are 3-point attempts, and 0.8 of those are 2-point attempts. So, the majority of those are 3-point attempts. He shoots out of every 4 shots, he shoots 3 3-point attempts, if that makes sense. So his field goal percentage is going to naturally be lower. That's why I like using true shooting percentage. But his true shooting percentage is 50.7%. So that's very below average. That's bad. So anyway, nothing left to say on Tolliver. Next guy we got Gary Trent Jr. This might be the last guy. I'm not entirely sure. But
we got Whiteside.
We got Whiteside. You're right. I think Whiteside. Yeah, this is the second to last guy. Then we got Whiteside. 13.1 minutes per game, 4.2 points per game, 1.3 rebounds, about half an assist per game, half steal. 36% from the field. This is a common trend. 38% from the 3-point line, though, which is good. You know, his 2-point percentage is crap, but who knows how many 2-point shots he shot. You know, maybe 10 or so very small sample size, so I'm not putting too much into his field goal percentage. He's shooting 100% from the free throw line on like 4 attempts, I think. His true shooting percentage is 49.8. -3 box plus minus. So I gave Trent a B- because I didn't expect him to do anything more than this offensively. Like the big thing to pay attention to is his 3-point percentage, which is a little bit better than I would have expected if he got minutes this season. I also didn't expect him to get minutes. So like the 3-point percentage, that's a good mark. Okay. The 2-point percentage, that type of stuff. Let me look up how many 2-point shots he shot this season. Cause I
don't have that, but he's shooting 32.6% on his 2-point shots.
Yeah, he's okay. Actually, he shot more than I thought. He shot 43 2-point shots and only made 14 of them. So that's not good, but that's something that will naturally improve, I think. You know, he should just stop shooting 2-point shots unless it's like a easy lay-in, if that makes sense. Then his efficiency would be good. You know, if he's just shooting 3-point shots, his efficiency would be good. He's shooting 38% from the 3-point line. That's a good clip. But a big part of my grade is he's actually shown some promise on the defensive end. It's much like Simons. He's surprised me on the defensive end. Gary Trent Jr. could be a good defender. I would not have said that before this season. But based on what I've seen so far this season, I think Gary Trent Jr. can be a good on-ball defender. For those that have followed me since I created content for True Blazer Fan, they know I haven't been high on Gary Trent Jr. I wasn't high on the draft pick. I wasn't high on trading 2 second-round picks for him, you know, which I still think is justified considering we got Rodney Hood for 2 second-round picks. That's like the type of player you can get for 2 second-round picks. We gave it up for Gary Trent Jr. I don't know about that, but I haven't been high on him in the past, so I'm not biased towards him. I think his defense, the defensive flashes he's shown, at least on the ball, have been very, very promising. He's had stretches, especially recently, where there was one game against the Phoenix Suns against Kelly Oubre, which like he didn't guard him for long. Kelly Oubre had a good game, but when Gary Trent Jr. was on him, I think Gary Trent Jr. was the best defensive player to put on him. Basically, that's just what this grade is based on. His 3-point percentage is good, and he's shown some flashes of on-ball defense, which have surprised me. And that shows me that he has the potential to be a true 3-and-D guy, which is kind of the guy that he was labeled as when he came into the draft. You know, you look at like a Wesley Matthews type guy, you know, he might not be able to, you know, do all the things that Wes could in his prime, but if you got a guy who is a good on-ball defender and shooting 38-39% from the 3-point line, can play the 2 or the 3, that's never a bad guy to have. He has to improve on some other things to be a help to the team, but considering this is only his second year, he's 20 years old, I'm fine with this.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that he's only a few months older than Simons because he seems like a 3 or 4 year college player compared to Simons, you know?
Yeah.
I gave him a C-, and it's kind of along the same lines as Simon's, other than his 38% three-point shooting, which is decent. I mean, the rest of his shooting is terrible. He has barely passed it all this year. His rebounding percentage is pretty mediocre. Anytime you have a shooter that's averaging or has a true shooting percentage lower than 50% is not good, in my opinion. I can't give him a better grade than that. And I felt like his defense, he's one of those guys who showed flashes again of being a really good defender, and this is probably just his age, but then I feel like he regresses a lot on defense and then falls asleep, and then like he's not always staying focused on that end. And that's something that he's always talked about having to do to stick around in the league. So I hope the 38% three-point shooting is a good sign, and that the rest of the stuff is just kind of outliers. Because I think he should be getting minutes right now, especially with the state of our team. I'd much rather him be playing over Bazemore right now. And so yeah, I'm hoping that he still develops into a lights out shooter. But yeah, just because he has 38% shooting, with all his other numbers being so bad, I couldn't give him more than a C-.
Yeah. Let me just say this, Hamza, I'm fine, bro. He's talking about, bro, you shouldn't be drinking soda. I drink 17 fluid ounces. This thing isn't even like a normal thing of soda. I woke up with a weird taste in my mouth. I've been cutting down on it. I've been better about it. I don't need a babysitter in my chat. I appreciate the concern, though. Yeah.
Every time you take a drink.
I know. It's like, dude, this isn't even big. Like, hell. Anyway, no caffeine, good choice. I needed some caffeine to wake me up for this post-game show so I could bring you guys that energy. So that's the fuel right there, you know? Anyway, Gary Trent Jr., you talked about his rebounding. His rebounding percentage isn't good, but I think he's done as good of a job as any of our wings as crashing the boards from the perimeter, which has been one of my biggest issues. A lot of times I feel like he crashes the boards from the perimeter and he doesn't get the rebound, but he disrupts like an offensive rebounder's chance to get an offensive rebound, and it helps us get a rebound, if that makes sense. Like, I don't really know how to explain it properly, but I feel like he helps our rebounding more than his stats would indicate. It's been one of my biggest issues that our wings, our guards, won't crash the boards from the perimeter and help out our bigs. You know, it'd be one thing if they were leaking out and we could get more transition opportunities because of it, but most of the time they're just standing at the three-point line watching one big man try and rebound against three offensive rebounders. They fail to box out. So I think that Gary Trent Jr. is, his rebounding percentage, his rebounding numbers don't really indicate, how much he helps us on the boards. He hasn't really passed much. But he hasn't disrupted the flow of the offense, if that makes sense, which is one of the biggest concerns I had about him going into the season, especially after Summer League, is he was a guy to just catch the ball and just go into ISO and just be a ball stopper and pass up obvious open passes. I can't say that he's really passed up obvious open passes, and I don't think he's really become a ball stopper where he's disrupting the flow of the offense. You know what I mean? So I don't think you can base too much off assists per game or that type of thing, assist percentage, whatever. I don't think you can base too much off of that. You kind of just got to watch him play, see how he, works in the flow of the offense. I think he's been better than I thought he would be, because I thought it was going to be a major problem for years to come where he's just a ball stopper, would turn down the obvious pass and disrupt the flow of the offense. That's another one of the things that I actually think has been a pleasant surprise for me. That's kind of something else that is baked into my B- grade that I gave him.
Yeah, totally fair.
Alrighty. Last player, I think, unless we got somebody with the last name that's, lower than a W, because we did this alphabetically, but we got Hassan Whiteside, which is maybe the most interesting case. Maybe the most polarizing guy for the Blazer fan base to grade. He's getting...
I bet if you graded Blazer fans or asked Blazer fans, you'd get A to F.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know how anybody could give him an F, but I feel like there definitely are people out there that scapegoat him and hate him for whatever reason. But low under 30 minutes per game, 15.5 points per game, 14 rebounds per game, 1.2 assists per game. He's getting almost 3 blocks per game. He's leading the league in blocks at 2.9 blocks per game. His field goal percentage is 59.4. He's 2 for 4 from the three-point line this year, 50%. Shooting 76.5% from the free throw line. That's a huge improvement over last season. Last season, I think he was below 50%. He's really worked on his free throw shooting, and it's shown in his free throw efficiency so far this season. He's shooting a very, very good 63.2% in terms of his true... God, why am I messing up words right now? We've been streaming too long. Anyway, 63.2% true shooting percentage. That is a very efficient mark. That's been much better than his previous seasons leading up to this one. He has a 3.0 box plus minus. So that is a terrific stat line for a center, especially when you consider the fact that he's putting up those stats in less than 30 minutes per game. That's a terrific stat line. I give him a B plus because I was reading some sort of stat. It was comparing Whiteside to Nurkic, and Nurkic, it was something about Nurkic had a much more positive impact on our rebounding numbers than Hassan Whiteside does. We all know he kind of chases rebounds. Will bump his teammates off rebounds so he can get them. So, 14 rebounds per game and 29.7 minutes per game, that looks terrific, but I feel like you can't put too much stock into that. So I'm not even going to look at the rebounds because I think, in terms of how much he helps us rebound, it's about as much as the average center, if that makes sense, even though his stats look better. 15.5 points per game on an efficient clip. That's good. He's finishing well off the pick and roll. His jump shot has improved. That's shown in his 3-point percentage, his free throw percentage. I also think he's shooting the highest clip in terms of his mid-range shooting percentage compared to years prior. The big problem with him is he chases blocks too much. I think that if he didn't chase blocks, if he stayed more fundamentally sound, he'd get one less block per game. But it actually might help us in the long run because I see plays at least once a game, sometimes twice, where he'll just flail at a block. He'll go try and get a block that he has no chance of getting. And then, the ball doesn't go in. His guy gets the rebound, gets the putback. Whereas if he just didn't go for the block, if he just boxed out his guy, we would have gotten the miss, and then that would have been, we wouldn't have let him score. We could have went down on offense. So I feel like his blocks per game numbers, while they do look great, I feel like it comes with the problem that he kind of chases blocks too much, gets out of position too much to try and chase blocks. He'll go for blocks that he has no chance of getting on shots that the other player has no chance of making, if that makes sense. So, Anyway, what do you think about him?
I gave him a B, and I truly believe that we couldn't have asked for more out of a stopgap center this season.
Mm-hmm.
No one we could have gotten this season could have done what Whiteside's doing right now, in my opinion. Realistic guys to have gotten instead of him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I kind of get why people think he's lazy. Or why his stats are empty, because it hasn't really translated into winning this season. We've both been on this since the trade, basically, that we don't think he is a lazy player. And when you put up those kind of stats, it's impossible to be that lazy. You're back to Carmelo Anfernee on the screen.
Whoops. Dang. All right, here we go. We're going to go through this until we get back there. Anyway.
It is kind of concerning that someone putting up that crazy of stats is not. And especially when you combine that with Dame's stats, that isn't translating to beating more teams.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be a little bit of something to his style of play doesn't translate to winning. But overall, like I said, what more do you want out of the guy? He's averaging almost 14 rebounds a game. And he steals rebounds, but no player that averages that many rebounds doesn't steal rebounds.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I feel like some of his blocks lately have been more have been better blocks, if that makes sense. So not quite chasing as much. Maybe he's learning a little bit. But yeah, it's difficult. It's not natural for a big to play in Stott's system unless you're, especially when you are a shot blocker, you know.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm laughing at chat. I'm laughing at OJ Mel. Anyway, go on. Oh man.
That's funny. But like, it's like for a guy like Whiteside who likes to contest shots, it's not natural to drop and let a player shoot like a 15-foot shot and not like get out on him or do whatever. So I wish we had a little bit more of him, seeing him if he could handle hedging picks or coming out on shooters a little bit more. The reason why I can't give him a higher grade than a B is he does get lazy on his closeout sometimes, loses his guy. We saw that a couple times in the Miami game where he just left Myers Leonard, and Leonard's just camping at the 3-point line waiting to get an open shot. So like I feel like at times he just gets away from the game plan, and he's not the smartest in terms of positioning and stuff like that. So I couldn't give him a higher than B, but overall, like I said, I could have really expected more than what he's given us this season.
Yep, 100% agree. I would like to see him hedge a little bit more, because it worked game one, man. It worked game one against Denver. I thought he hedged pretty well. I'm surprised they haven't gone back to that. Maybe it's, you don't have Collins on the backside to protect the rim behind Whiteside. But overall, shooting this efficiently, he is blocking a lot of shots. This stat line, if he was, not chasing blocks as much, not stealing rebounds as much, I'd give him a higher grade. But it's just these stats kind of come with a caveat, but they're still very, very good and still better than he had been in previous seasons. So that's why I give him a B+. So anyway, that's it for our grades. We're going to wrap up this podcast in a second, but I figured we should touch on the game that is tipping off in about an hour. We got the Blazers going into Houston against the Houston Rockets. Any chance Portland wins this game, Eric?
I'm actually feeling kind of not really optimistic, but I feel like they do have a chance. Yeah.
Chat, let me know. Do you think the Blazers have a chance of winning this game? Because I know it's stupid. This would be the best win all season. You know what I mean?
They did play yesterday.
True.
They got blown out by Memphis yesterday.
True. But honestly, Memphis is a solid team. Hey, I told you about Memphis and OKC, man. I got to bring up those clips from that podcast. God, I should have actually put some money down. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, the very first podcast we did, I was actually at Eric's house. We actually did it together. You guys can go look back on it. It was late September, but we picked 3 teams we thought were sure over bets, and I think we picked 3 teams that were sure under bets in terms of their projected win-loss totals. Memphis was projected to have 25 wins. OKC was projected to have 32 wins. Those were 2 of my 3 teams that were you got to bet the over on these guys. Memphis right now, there's no way they don't win more than 25 games. OKC, I don't think there's any way they don't win more than 32 games. Those teams are approaching those numbers, even though it's only halfway through the season. Should have put some money down on those teams. God, because I was so confident though. But Memphis is legit. Memphis is absolutely legit. Ja Morant, hey, me and you were right on Ja. I think he's a better prospect than Zion Williamson.
We'll see. Zion, they just announced today that Zion's supposed to play next Wednesday, so we'll finally get to see. But yeah, in case anyone doesn't know, both Tori and I love Ja Morant. We probably would have picked him number 1 over Zion, but yeah.
Yep. I would have tried to. I would have approached Memphis and been like, "You guys want Zion? You guys want to trade up from number 2 to number 1? Maybe give us that the 23rd pick they ended up having, and then let Memphis take Zion Williamson, then I would have taken Ja Morant number 2 and Brandon Clark, because Brandon Clark's been phenomenal for Memphis as well. But yeah, I'm higher on Morant than I am on Zion, and that was before the injury issues. Now, like, I definitely would have taken Ja Morant number 1 because I'm not sure Zion Williamson can hold up. We'll see, and I'm interested to see him play starting Wednesday. I'll probably have to tune in for that. But yeah, well, Ja Morant's awesome. But the Blazers with Houston, I just have the feeling James Harden's going to drop like 50 points on us. Yeah, we don't have anybody that can guard him well in isolation, and they have shooters. And the problem is, if we do help on James Harden, we don't know how to rotate. So, like, either it's like, okay, we're going to let James Harden get 50 and guard the shooters, or we're going to help on to James Harden, and these shooters are just going to have wide open threes all game long. The problem is our defense isn't good enough to be able to deal with the Houston Rockets offense like this. Maybe those shooters struggle and we're able to get some good offensive performances. I think that's what it takes for us to win. But it's just a tough task with the team in the position they are. It would be a nice win. It'd be a phenomenal win. I mean, we'll have this post-game show. I'll be hyped if we end up winning this game. But I'm not that confident going into this game.
We need Melo to have a revenge game today.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. It's just like I feel like we're gonna have to score 125 points to win this game. Like, we can score 120 and lose. We can score 125 and lose. I think we have to at least get in the 120s in order to win this game, because I don't see us holding Houston to less than 120 points per game. Anyway, Eric, what's your prediction for the final score tonight?
Put me on the spot here.
Yep.
I'm guessing it's going to be like 120 to 113 Rockets.
Okay. Sadly, I'm projecting 123 to 108. That's my final score. We'll see how close we get. We'll see if one of us can nail it. Let me know what your guys' projected final score is for sorry, I just got this straight by chat. Chat, let me know what your guys' projected final score is and who you have winning. Randall Pink Floyd said 138 to 117. I don't know which team you have with 138 there. I assume it's going to be Houston, but...
By the way, I went through and wrote down all the people's projections over that 14-game stretch we talked about on the last podcast. So I wrote that all down so we can revisit that too.
Okay. Okie dokie. The problem I see with this game tonight, though, is we're going to sag the big, and James Harden is going to go downhill at the big, and he's either going to get that floater, that easy floater, or Whiteside's going to come a little bit more, and he's just going to lob it to Capella, and they're going to eat us up on that. We should be hedging Whiteside. We can't sagging the big against James Harden and Clip Capella is literally like the worst way you can guard James Harden pick and rolls, in my opinion. The worst way you can guard James Harden pick and rolls. But I guarantee with the Hassan Whiteside, that's how we guard the pick and rolls tonight. And even if James Harden has 30 in the first half, or like has 20 and has like 10 lobs to Capella in the first half, coming out in the second half, I can all but guarantee we won't adjust it. Okay? So pay attention to that tonight. Hopefully I'm wrong. I want to be wrong on that. But I feel like that's what's going to happen. And I feel like that's going to lead to Houston just having a phenomenal game tonight.
Fortunately, that's something I always focus on, is our pick and roll defense. And it's always,
you gotta shut down. Yep, gotta shut down that pick and roll, man. So anyway, that's a wrap for this podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This was a very fun podcast to stream. Going through player grades is a little bit change of pace. Being able to go into depth on each Blazers player was a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully our grades didn't piss you off too much. I think Eric's grades probably pissed you off a little bit more than mine did. But
Well, I'm pissed off at the Blazers' performance.
Yeah, you can't blame Eric. Can't blame Eric at all. It was fun to actually disagree on a couple different things here and there, because we usually agree too much. So that's a wrap for the podcast. I'll be tweeting out on Twitter during this game tonight. I'll be tweeting out what I see on the floor, as I always do. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, go follow me on Twitter. I try and break down the game live. I feel like I do that as well as anybody. Eric does so as well. So my Twitter is @ToreyJonesYT, TOREY Jones YT. So go leave me a follow right now. Eric is at HoopsJock. HoopsJock is Eric's Twitter. Blazers Uprise is the Twitter handle for the Blazers Uprise Twitter account. And if, you can go there and then follow us from there because we have our ats in the description there, in the bio there. So anyway, that's a wrap for this podcast. We'll catch you guys later. We'll catch you guys on Friday. Actually, no, we'll catch you tonight. We'll catch you tonight with that post-game show. And then we'll catch you Friday with our podcast on Friday. And I think we'll have another post-game show there. So we're doing two-a-days right now. Two-a-day streams right now with the podcast and the games since the games are Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that's the plan. We'll catch you guys later. As always, peace out. Go Blazers.